Section 6 of The Rural Magazine and Literary Evening Fireside, Volume 1, Number 1. This is a LibriVox recording. All LibriVox recordings are in the public domain. For more information or to volunteer, please visit LibriVox.org. Recording by Colleen McMahon. The Rural Magazine and Literary Evening Fireside, Volume 1, Number 1, by Various. Treatise on Agriculture, Section 1. On the Rise and Progress of Agriculture. The origin of this art is lost among the fables of antiquity, and we have to regret that in the present state of knowledge we are even ignorant of the time when the plough was invented, and of the name and condition of the inventor. When, therefore, we speak of the beginning of the art, we but allude to certain appearances which indicate its existence, and the employment given by it to the minds as well as to the hands of mankind. Such were the artificial canals and lakes of Egypt. Menaced at one time by a redundancy of water, and at another by its scarcity or want, the genius of that extraordinary people could not but employ itself, promptly and strenuously, in remedying these evils, and eventually in converting them into benefits. And hence it was that when other parts of the world exhibited little more of agricultural knowledge than appertains to the state of nature imagined by philosophers, the Egyptians thoroughly understood and skillfully practiced irrigation, that most scientific and profitable branch of the art. Like their own Nile, their population had its overflow, which colonized Carthage and Greece, and carried with it the talent and intelligence of the mother country. The former of these states, though essentially commercial, had its plantations, and so highly prized were the agricultural works of Mago, that when Carthage was captured, they alone of the many books found in it were retained and translated by the Romans. A similar inference may be drawn from the history of Greece, for assuredly that art could not have been either unknown or neglected, which so long employed the pen and the tongue of the great Xenophon. It must, however, be admitted that of the ancient nations, it is only among the Romans that we find real and multiplied evidences of the progress of the art, facts substituted for conjectures and inferences. Cato, Varro, Columella, Virgil, and Pliny wrote on the subject, and it is from their works we derive the following brief exposition of Roman husbandry. The plough, the great instrument of agricultural labor, was well known and generally used among them. It was drawn exclusively by horned cattle. Of facile manures we know that they used lime and probably marl, and that those of animal and vegetable basis were carefully collected. Attention to this subject even made part of the national religion. The dunghill had its god, and Stercutus his temple and worshippers. Their corn crops were abundant. Besides barley and far, they had 3 species of wheat, the robus or red, the siligo or white, and the triticum trimestre or summer wheat. They had besides millet, panis, zea, Indian corn, and rye, all of which, producing a flour convertible into bread, were known by the common name of frumentum. Leguminous crops were frequent. The lupin in particular was raised in abundance, and besides being employed as a manure, entered extensively into the subsistence of men, cattle, and poultry. The cultivation of garden vegetables was well understood and employed many hands, and meadows, natural and artificial, were brought to great perfection. Lucerne and fenugreek were the basis of the latter, and peas, rye, and a mixture of barley, beans, and peas, called farrago, were occasionally used in the stables as green food. Their flocks were abundant, and formed their first representatives of wealth, as is sufficiently indicated by their word pecunia. Vines and olives and their products, wine and oil, had a full share of attention and use. The rearing of poultry made an important part of domestic economy, nor were apiaries and fish ponds forgotten or neglected. If we pause for a moment to glance at the civil institutions of this wonderful people, we discover how soon and how deeply it entered into their policy, not merely to promote, but to dignify agriculture and its professors. When Cicero said that, quote, "Nothing in this world was better, more useful, more agreeable, more worthy of a free man than agriculture," end of quote, he pronounced not merely his own opinion, but the public judgment of his age and nation. Were troops to be raised for the defense of the Republic? The tribus rusticus was the privileged nursery of the legions. Did exigencies of state require a general or a dictator? He was taken from the plough. Were his services rewarded? This was done not with ribbons or gold, but by a donation of land. With such support from public opinion, it was not to be supposed that the laws would be either adverse or indifferent to this branch of industry. We accordingly find the utmost security given to the labors of the husbandman. No legislative interposition between the seller and buyer, neither forced sales nor limitation of prices, and a sacredness of boundaries never disturbed. Fairs and markets multiplied and protected against invasion or interruption, and highways leading to these everywhere established, and of a character to call forth benedictions and admiration. Nor were these regulations confined to the proper territory of Rome. What of her own policy was good, she communicated to her neighbors. What of theirs was better, she adopted and practiced herself. Her arts and arms were therefore constant companions. Wherever her legions marched, her knowledge, practices, and implements followed, and it is to these we are to look for the foundation of modern agriculture in Italy, France, Spain, etc. Albany Argus. To be continued. End of section 6. Recording by Colleen McMahon.